Quick question. How do you kill a man who can build a force field out of pure thought? You don't. Not with a gun. Not unless he already stopped being that man before the trigger got pulled. That's the puzzle sitting at the end of the Lanterns premiere. Hal Jordan is dead, frozen in a set of bleachers in the town of Rushville, and his hand is empty. No ring. And here's the part almost nobody is talking about correctly. Tom King, the co-creator of this show, went on the official podcast and confirmed exactly where that ring ended up. It's not lost. It's not destroyed. Guy Gardner has it, and based on what King said, Guy had it before Hal died, not after. That single detail rewrites the whole premiere. This isn't just a murder mystery anymore. It's a succession story with a body count. So let's actually take this apart, piece by piece, using the dates the show gives us, the comic history it's clearly borrowing from, and the interview where King basically hands us the answer without realizing he's doing it. I'm going to lay out the full timeline, walk through why John Stewart got passed over, dig into who Guy Gardner, even as if you only know him from the Superman movie, and then build the theory that actually ties the ring, the murder, and the missing year together. Stick around, because the last piece of this involves something the show barely shows on screen, and it might be the biggest clue in the entire episode. Lanterns doesn't move in a straight line. It jumps around, and if you don't track the years, the mystery falls apart. So let's lock in 3 dates. 2016. This is where most of the premiere lives. Hal is Earth's active Green Lantern. John Stewart has been training under him for 2 months, and Hal still won't let him wear the ring properly. This is the mentor and rookie relationship the marketing has been selling you. 2025. This is the year Superman takes place. In that movie, Guy Gardner is already out in the field, fighting alongside the Justice Gang, using a ring in public, functioning as a real Green Lantern. Not a trainee, not a backup, an operator. 2026. This is where the premiere ends. Sheriff Carey brings John back to Rushville, and he finds Hal's body in the snow. He checks the hand out of pure instinct. Nothing there. And King's podcast comment tells us John isn't wearing the ring either. Guy is. So somewhere between 2016 and 2025, Hal Jordan stopped being the guy with the ring, and Guy Gardner became the guy with the ring. That's roughly a 9-year gap where an entire succession happened, off-screen, and the show is choosing to reveal it to us backwards. That here's where the premiere gets genuinely clever, because it sets up 2 competing systems for who gets to be Green Lantern, and it never resolves which one actually wins. System 1 belongs to John. He believes the Guardians selected him directly. That's an appointment from above, official, sanctioned. Hal doesn't really argue with that part. System 2 belongs to Hal, and it's the one he actually enforces. In Hal's world, a nomination from the Guardians means nothing until the ring itself signs off. He tells John flat out that he's a substitute teacher, not ready to run the class until the ring says otherwise. Then he leaves the ring sitting in a moving car and makes John function without it. That's not mentorship. That's a stress test with no safety net. There's a smaller moment that backs this up. When John puts on Hal's ring, the AI backup built into it doesn't recognize the arrangement, because normally a Lantern doesn't train a recruit from their own sector. The system itself is confused by what Hal is doing. John has been nominated for a job that the infrastructure around him doesn't even have a category for. So you've got a candidate with paperwork and a ring that hasn't made up its mind. That gap between being chosen and being accepted is exactly where Guy Gardner walks in. If you only know Guy from the Superman movie, doing bit comic relief in a bold cut, it's easy to assume the show just needed a 3rd Lantern for spectacle. That's backwards. In the comics, Guy Gardner is baked into Green Lantern succession from the very beginning. When the previous ring bearer was dying and the ring went looking for a replacement on Earth, it flagged 2 viable human candidates. Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner. Hal got picked first, mostly because he happened to be closer when it mattered. Guy came in a close second, and the Guardians formally designated him as the backup, the guy who steps in if Hal goes down or goes missing. Only after that arrangement fell apart did a 3rd option, John Stewart, get brought in as a 2nd-string replacement. Translate that into Lantern's logic, and you get a clean chain of command. Hal is the sitting Lantern. Guy is the original, pre-approved contingency plan. John is the newer name added on top of an already existing system. Modern comics eventually let multiple Earth Lanterns operate side by side. No drama required. But everything about how this show is marketed, and I mean the actual tagline HBO is using, "Only one can wear the ring," tells you they're going back to the older, more brutal version of the mythology, where the position is singular and contested. If that's true, then Guy isn't some wild card. He's the fallback option that's been sitting there the entire time, just waiting for Hal's seat to open up. Now let's play this out practically. If Hal's position becomes unstable, who can the Green Lantern Corps actually deploy on short notice? John has the Guardian's endorsement and the right instincts, but by 2016 he's 2 months into training and still hasn't been cleared to use the ring on his own. He's a candidate for the future, not an asset for right now. Guy, by the time we see him in Superman, is already fully operational. He knows the tech, he's fought alongside a team. He doesn't need 6 more months of supervision. If there's an emergency and the Corps needs a working lantern immediately, Guy is the only name on the list who doesn't require training wheels. And there's a second reason this matters, one that has nothing to do with skill. Leaked footage from Comic-Con shows Hal and John physically fighting over the ring. In the trailer, Guy tracks Hal down to warn him that an army is coming for him. The trailer never confirms who that army belongs to, but Guy already knows about the threat before Hal's story ends. That tells you Guy isn't some late addition to this crisis. He's already inside it, watching it happen, before anyone finds a body. If the Corps needs to pull Hal out of the field without immediately rewarding the one person Hal has spent months resenting, using Guy solves 2 problems at once. It removes Hal, and it doesn't hand John an instant win in a conflict that's clearly gotten personal. Here's the uncomfortable read on Hal and John's relationship, and it's not really about competence. It's about ego. Every training session Hal runs turns into a fight about identity. He withholds the ring. He undercuts John's status in front of him. He pushes him into dangerous scenarios that look less like lessons and more like tests designed to make John fail. And there's a line from the released footage that tells you everything. Hal tells John the only way he's getting that ring is over Hal's dead body. Hal ends up dead. John is standing right there. The ring still doesn't come to him. That's not a coincidence the show is hiding. That's a promise being paid off in the cruelest way possible. Hal meant it, even after he's gone. From the Guardian's side, that's a real operational problem. John might be exactly who they want long-term, but you can't hand him the job while the current Lantern is actively sabotaging the transition. Do that, and you don't get a clean handoff. You get a war between a mentor and his own trainee. Guy offers a way around that. He's got history with Hal, sure, but he's not the specific person Hal has spent 2 years resenting. He can hold the position while everyone figures out whether John is actually ready, whether Hal broke the rules of the job, or whether something else entirely is manipulating the whole situation. There's also a darker possibility worth naming. What if Hal himself pushed to keep the ring away from John? The trailers keep circling back to the word replacement as the one thing that cracks Hal's confidence. A man that insecure about his own relevance might genuinely prefer almost anyone else holding that ring instead of the trainee standing right in front of him, actively proving he doesn't need Hal anymore. Whichever version is true, the end result is identical. John stays the intended successor. Guy gets the job in the present tense. Now here's a detail buried in the premiere that I think matters more than the internet is giving it credit for. Lantern's rings carry a stored digital backup of their previous wearer, a kind of AI hologram built from Hal's own consciousness. John encounters this backup, and it's noticeably out of date, like nobody's updated it in a while. If Guy really is holding Hal's actual physical ring, and not just a separate ring assigned to him independently, then he's not just carrying a weapon. He's carrying an archive. Old messages Hal recorded. Fragments connected to whatever investigation Hal was running before he died. That would split the evidence in this case, right down the middle. John has the crime scene and the body. Guy might be sitting on Hal's memory. That gives the writers a built-in reason to bring Guy's guest appearance back around later in the season. Not for comic relief, but to hand the investigation a second half of the story that John physically can't access on his own. That I want to flag the actual weak point here, because a good theory survives its own counterargument. Green Lantern lore is packed with rings. Thousands of them exist across the wider Corps, and in recent comics, several human lanterns operate simultaneously without any of this succession drama. So it's entirely possible Guy just has his own separate ring, and Tom King is using the word ring loosely as shorthand for the job itself, not confirming Guy is physically holding the exact object taken off Hal's hand. Nothing in the footage so far puts both rings side by side. Nobody's dramatized an actual transfer on screen. That said, the way the show keeps framing this, one position, one open slot, one empty hand at the end of the premiere, tells me the writers want you thinking singular, even if the wider mythology technically allows for more. HBO didn't pick, "Only one can wear the ring," as a tagline by accident. So here's how I'd stitch this together using everything we've got. 2016. The Guardians pick John as Hal's long-term replacement. Hal starts training him but won't let go of control, insisting the final call belongs to the ring, not to a committee. Somewhere in the years after that, Hal standing with the Corps takes a hit. Could be his own conduct. Could be the case connected to Rushville. Could be outside interference nobody's named yet. Whatever it is, Guy hears about a coming threat before Hal's story reaches its end. Before Superman takes place in 2025, Hal loses the active Lantern position. John isn't finished with training and is still tangled up in his conflict with Hal, so the job falls to the one experienced backup already written into Green Lantern history. Guy Gardner takes the ring. By 2026, Hal is alive but stripped of the power, the status, and the protection that came with the job. Someone kills him and leaves the body at the exact location tied to his last investigation, which explains something that shouldn't be possible. A regular bullet ending the life of one of the most powerful people on the planet only works if that power was already gone. That means the murder and the succession aren't two separate storylines. They're the same campaign, viewed from two different angles. Whoever wanted Hal vulnerable benefits from him losing the ring first. Whoever wanted John delayed benefits from a third lantern sitting between them. Both of those goals point at the exact same outcome, and it already happened before Episode 1 even ends. Heading into Episode 2, there are really two separate crimes on the table. One left a body, the other left a witness, and that witness is currently walking around wearing the proof that someone dismantled Hal Jordan long before they ever pulled a trigger. If Tom King is telling the truth on that podcast, and Guy really is holding the exact ring taken off a dead man's hand, then the real mystery of this season isn't just who killed Hal. It's who convinced the most powerful weapon on Earth to leave him first. Drop your own read in the comments. I want to know if you think this was the ring's decision, the Guardians, or something a lot more human pulling the strings behind it. And if you're new here, subscribe, because I'll be breaking down every episode of Lanterns the same way, timeline by timeline, clue by clue. I'll see you in the next one.